All right, welcome back. It's another Thursday where we're going to answer all of your questions about selling on Amazon, starting first with the questions that came from last week's video. And those are the questions that we can get from our comments here. And so we're going to start with these questions first, but then we'll answer your live questions next. So jumping right into the very first pre-submitted question, that is, I have dropped in ranking. How do I know what went wrong and what I should improve? This is a good question. Because there's a lot of different things that could have gone wrong, but figuring that out isn't that difficult. Now, it's going to be very hard to understand exactly what that one thing is, but there are a variety of factors that you can look at, and let me show you exactly how to do that. So I'm just pulling it up on my screen here, but what the biggest culprit tends to be is your search rankings. And so I'm going to go under our keywords tab here in Jungle Scout and use a tool like Rank Tracker that will show you where you're ranking on Amazon. It will show you your organic rank and it'll also show you your sponsored rank. And you can also plug in your competitors like we did here. So this is our product, these washable pee pads for dogs that we sell on Amazon, but we also plugged in our competitors here. And so we actually have stopped advertising recently or slowed it down a lot. So our numbers kind of suck right now, but to show you why this is helpful is this column right here, top 10, is showing us how many keywords that we've decided we want to track. Are we ranked in the top 10 compared to our competitors? So we're actually at 0 right now, whereas this one competitor has 24. And so what I would like to do is look at our keywords, and this is what you could do for your product as well. Choose a date range. Here I just have selected the last 60 days. And you can see a graph up here that you can look at your keywords over time. You can select which keywords you want to look at by selecting them from this list here. And then there's also a table down below. Now, just like this graph, we have an organic and sponsored rank view. You can come down here and you can look at your keywords, for example. Washable puppy pads, waterproof, we've increased our organic rank on, but that's the only keyword here that I'm seeing has any number next to it. Now, again, keep in mind, maybe this is a bad example because we've slowed down our advertising significantly these past few weeks. But this is what I would do is I'd be tracking my keywords over time and finding the specific keywords that have dropped in ranking. And the reason that's important is because it doesn't really matter if you're dropping in ranking on just one keyword. For example, let's see here. I'm actually in the wrong group. So this is a group that I've called highly related. These are the keywords that I actually really care about because they are long tail keywords and they're very relevant for our product. And so they accurately describe it. Whereas you'll see we have a group called top funnel here. These are keywords that have a lot of search volume, like, let's see, if I sort by search volume here, puppy pads, but they're not the most relevant for our product. So if I just search for it on Amazon, we sell washable pee pads for dogs, but the first products that come up on screen here are reusable pee pads. And that's because they're a lot cheaper than what we sell. We sell it for like $37, and you can buy reusable pee pads for like $10 here. And so this search term is good because it has a lot of search volume, but it's not our most coveted keyword that we should really care about dropping ranking because it's just not relevant for us. We're probably not going to show up on the first page on that keyword. So it's less important for us. And so what I'm trying to get at is it's very important to understand where you're losing ranking from first, and that way you know how to attack it. So how I would attack the drop in rank over a good keyword, once you figure out what that keyword or keywords are, is the very first thing you can do that will take less time to see kind of an action on or improvement on is advertising. And by bidding on that keyword, what I would do is put it in its own campaign. So its own advertising campaign. This is what we do at Jungle Scout. And we bid on it in exact match. So we want to bid on that exact keyword phrase, exactly how it is that we're trying to show up for on Amazon. And I would have it in its own campaign. That allows you greater control and granularity of putting more money towards that bid and then seeing over time how you're converting and how many sales you're getting on that keyword. Whereas if you were to put it in a separate in a campaign with other keywords, it's going to be harder to adjust your budget just on that one keyword, right? Or if you add it in broad or phrase match, then there's going to be other words attached to it. Now that's completely fine to do as well. You could create one campaign with one keyword in broad phrase and exact match, or you could do what I do and just separate them out. So I have one campaign for exact match keywords, and sometimes just one keyword like I'm mentioning now. And so that's the fastest approach to increase your ranking, because as you get more sales on that keyword or that keyword phrase with ads, Amazon will start to take notice and say, okay, more people are typing in the search term on Amazon and buying that product with ads. And so now let's take that organic placement that they're on. Maybe you're like ranked 50th, and move them up the ranks a little bit because they're proving to us that shoppers are buying the product after searching that keyword phrase. So advertising on the keyword specifically is the fastest way. Long term, what you want to do right now, but it just won't take effect, or you won't really see benefits from it for at least a few weeks, is making sure it's in your title and in your listing, and really just making sure that's your listing is fully optimized with those keywords that you really, really care about. We have some really great videos on this on our channel. I'll try to pull one up now just to speed up finding it if you're interested. So if you go to our videos tab, I believe we have it right here. So this is a good one I would watch, is finding long tail keywords. That will help you identify which keywords you should be really going after. Those lower competitive keywords that will pay dividends if you can rank for them. And then another video we have right here is outrank your competitors. And so this will show you more specifically answering or directly answering your question of how you can actually climb the ranks for those keywords. So I give those two videos a watch, but high level advertising on that specific keyword. But first you need to know what keywords you're dropping your ranking on, which is why a tool like Jungle Scout is really helpful. All right, moving on to our second pre-submitted question. This one is, as a non-US resident looking to wholesale on Amazon, please explain how to get an LLC and a resale certificate. Great question. Now, a little bit of context or preference here is that I have always been a US resident, and I actually haven't wholesaled myself, but I understand the process, talking to other people, other experts in the industry, a few here at Jungle Scout as well. So from my understanding is to get an LLC and a resale certificate. Let's first start with the LLC. If you're selling in the United States, you need to select a state to get that LLC in. Now, this is a question that came up quite often from last week's video, so I'll answer it here in case you asked that question last week and you're like, why is my question not being answered? This is why, because I'm going to answer it here. So which states should you get an LLC in? Now, there are certain states that are more business friendly. If you look them up on YouTube or with ChatGPT, they'll tell you ones like Wyoming, Texas even, where we're located here. There are some more business friendly states, and all that means is their paperwork is less rigorous, the cost is cheaper, and the compliance, so the yearly paperwork essentially, is easier. Now, in my personal preference, when I got my LLC, even though I'm in the US, I think it still applies for anyone trying to get an LLC in the US, even if you don't live here, is to use a company like LegalZoom. That's who I used. Or there's a cheaper option like Zen Business, or you can really just Google this question and you'll find different companies like LegalZoom that are cheaper. Keep in mind, LegalZoom is on the higher, more premium side, but they do a great job and they have a great track record of helping you get your LLC and basically putting everything out in front of you that you need to do. And so that's what I recommend doing, especially if this is your first time and you're not going to seek any legal advice, is to use a company like LegalZoom. They will literally just put things on a platter for you that makes it easier for you to know what you need to do, like what paperwork you need to sign, and everything you need to submit your LLC and get that approved. Now, the second part of that is a resale certificate. The resale certificate depends on the state that you go through. So you could choose any state, but what you want to do is, in my opinion, choose the state that you are getting an LLC in. And that just simplifies the process, right? I mean, you could probably choose a different state if you'd like. I believe the general advice on this should be to choose one where you have nexus in, which is basically where you're going to be conducting a lot of your sales. Now, the hard part about knowing that is you're probably going to get sales from every state in the US. So it's going to be hard to just like guess which one you're going to have the most sales in. So what I would personally do is just use the same state that I do my LLC in. So if I'm doing Texas to get my LLC, I'm going to use Texas's resale certificate. And they might call it something different. Some call it like a sales permit, or there's different terminologies across different states, but I would just go with the same one that I used my LLC in. Now you can also, I think LegalZoom helps with that. I believe they set that up for me, and when I got my LLC through them, they just set that up for me to do, or at least showed me the process of doing it. You have to go to the government website of the state you're looking to get one in. So texas.gov would be where you find out that information and file. But that to me is just really the long way of answering your question is pick a state to summarize. And then personally, I would choose a service like LegalZoom to put things on a platter for me. And they also help you with yearly compliance. So every year you'll have to submit some sort of like tax forms to the government, and they just notify you when those happen and what paperwork needs to be submitted. You still have to do it yourself, but they tell you kind of the calendar of when you need to do it by and give you a little bit of guidance along the way. So hopefully that answers your question. Feel free, if you're in the chat right now, to ask any follow-ups, and I'll try to get more specific if I can. All right, next pre-submitted question. Is there a way to send my shipments to one Amazon warehouse instead of multiple? All right. Tell me right now in the chat who's here because they figured out Amazon now has something called an inbound service fee, right? It's a brand new service called inbound placement. And this essentially is a way for Amazon to start charging you for what they previously would do. And that's when you would send your inventory into Amazon before. Amazon would then take your inventory and spread it across different fulfillment centers across the country. And the reason why they do that or did that is because you have customers in different parts of the country. So obviously you want to get the inventory closer to them so that the shipping estimate is faster and they're more likely to buy. So what is happening right now is Amazon's introduced, starting March 1st, which is a couple days ago, this inbound placement fee. And I'll show you what that looks like, as well as how you can get more information. So here I have pulled up a send to Amazon workflow, basically just pretending like I'm sending inventory in Amazon. Now what I did is I selected first my inventory. I chose our product here and I said, I'm going to send in 1,500 units, which is pretty typical for us. So this is actually a really good example of what it would look like. And then I click continue, and that brought me to step 2 where I now have a few options. So previously, again, you just have the option of sending it to like 1 or 2 or even 3 locations, if you're lucky, 1. But now you have 3 different options. If you want to learn more, I highly recommend just going to this Learn More tab and then opening it up here with this little button here. This will give you all the information you need, so highly recommend checking this out. But essentially, there are 3 options now. So if you want to send your inventory to one shipment, which is super simple, then you can select this option and you'll see a price here now. And you can choose East, Central, or West, but the East will always be cheaper than these 2. So basically, as you can see down here, that means I only have to send it to one location. Convenient for me, convenient for my supplier, convenient for my freight forwarder, whoever's doing the shipping. However, that's causing Amazon some issues. And so they want to give you 2 other options actually, that will make it easier for them. And so this next one is called partial shipments. And this is where you now can have up to 3 shipping locations. And it will be slightly cheaper than the one shipment option over here. Again, East through West, you can see different pricing, and East will always be cheaper. And so by now splitting up your shipment into 3, you're saving a little bit of money because you're saving Amazon some money as well. And you'll see those 3 different shipping options here. Now, this last one here is Amazon optimized shipments. This is essentially you doing Amazon a big old favor by shipping it to at least 4 locations. So you can actually see here, we have 5 in ours, but the minimum is 4. So potentially we could have had 4. 4, 3, 1 is what you can expect here. Now, what this is doing obviously is making it harder for me and probably more expensive for my supplier to ship my products. So the game plan here is to figure out what's cheaper. And how can you figure that out? Well, the best way of figuring that out is asking your supplier for a quote and seeing if they can beat Amazon's optimized shipping plan. And so actually, let me go back to the screen share here. So let's say you were going to do 5 shipments here, and it's going to be free in terms of getting it into Amazon and FBA warehouses. What I would do is ask my suppliers, right? Can you send it into Amazon cheaper than $630 or $630? So yeah, $630, sorry. And basically what I'm trying to do is just collect a bunch of different quotes from my suppliers to see if I can beat these costs here. If my supplier says, hey, I can do 5 shipments and that's going to cost you $200, then I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do Amazon's optimized shipment plan because it's only going to cost me $200. Now they say, hey, it's going to cost $800 to do 5 shipments. So that's way more than this option over here. Then I'll just let Amazon do it, right? I'll select 1 shipment here or 3, probably just do 1. and say, okay, Amazon's charging me $630 for one shipment, and then they'll go ahead and disperse it. But my supplier is charging me like $800 to basically do the dispersing for Amazon. So to me, I think the best solution is to figure out what your options are. And that's just to ask your supplier for a quote for doing it to the 5 shipping locations that Amazon, or 4 maybe, is asking you to send them to. If it's higher than the 1 shipment option, then choose Amazon. Choose Amazon's 1 shipment option. But if it's lower, then go ahead and do it because you'll save a lot of money. So it's a little confusing, and I want to do more content on this. Again, this is a brand new service now. So stay tuned. I might actually post like a social video or something just like more long form that we can get out quicker. But this is essentially your options. Again, go to that article and read more about the inbound placement service so that you can understand your options better. Cool. Next question. How can I find suppliers for a product I found off Amazon? Okay, so to find suppliers for a product you found off Amazon, I would assume it means that the product doesn't sell currently on Amazon, because it doesn't really matter if the product does sell on Amazon or not. There's really a few ways to find suppliers. You can always choose Alibaba, which is the most simplest user or beginner-friendly way of locating suppliers. And that's because they just built this massive website that's just super user-friendly. The downside of that is you're working with suppliers that potentially are just dealing with so much business, so it's harder to get their attention. It's harder to communicate with them, most likely, because, at least in my experience, there's a lot of communication translation that gets lost. And so part of like the job is just finding a supplier that's easy to communicate with. Someone that understands your vision, can speak to you clearly, gets back to you fast, or in a timely manner at least. So that's part of the battle, but Alibaba is a great resource, regardless of whether the product's sold on Amazon or not. And why I say that is because you can find a supplier that produces a similar product and ask them to customize it for you. So you can send them the product you found off Amazon. You can find a supplier that kind of makes in the ballpark of that product and say, here's my plan. And reach out to like 20 different suppliers or 10 different suppliers or 5 different suppliers and see if they can do it. More often than not, these suppliers, at least overseas, especially in China, their manufacturing capabilities are beyond your imagination. Like in the US, typically if you're going to reach out to a manufacturer, you have to buy what they're currently making, or you have to pay a hefty amount for them to customize it for you. In China, you will probably have to pay some like mold fees. So maybe they have to like create a mold. In my experience, that's typically like 1,000 to 5. I mean, it could be more expensive than that, but just anticipate maybe on the low end of 4 figures, like 1,000 to 2,000 if you're lucky. But that's just one cost or a one-time cost to make that mold. Sometimes they can do it without the mold, and they can just kind of piece together parts or just modify what they currently sell to sellers. Now, the downside of that is that they could just sell now your modified product to other people. You can write like confidentiality or basically you can write, I'm blanking on the word or the phrase, but there you could tell them not to sell it to other people and have them sign something. But if they're in China, their laws don't matter here. So it's just, it might be good to do that, but it's just not going to legally protect you. Alibaba's great. Again, you can ask suppliers to modify products that they aren't currently selling. You can do a Google search. I know that sounds too basic, but a lot of times this is how I find suppliers that, I maybe not would have found regardless. So maybe an example of that would be, we sell those washable pee pads for dogs. So let me just do that real quick. Washable pee pads for dogs, maybe go manufacturers. You can do suppliers too, and you can go anywhere. So maybe I want to get out of China, save some money on tariffs or duties. I can do that. And you'll maybe find some websites, like India Mart is one that I'm aware of. Global Sources is another one. And these are basically like Alibaba alternatives, but for India. And you can do this in different countries too. Like I believe Pakistan or Afghanistan even has a version of this. They're not as well built out, but you can still find suppliers this way, whether you're using a website like this or actually just by finding them. Sometimes you have to dig around, but you might find an actual supplier website here, like GeoMart. That kind of sounds like a marketplace too, but you can really just look around and try to find suppliers on Google, really modifying your searches. And then the other way, if you're looking for US suppliers, is it's called ThomasNet. And it's not as user-friendly, again, like Alibaba, but it is a good way to find manufacturers that produce a certain type of material. And so if you're looking for like a metal wire basket, for example, and you want to modify it, you can find suppliers in the US that make metal wire products. Some of them will actually maybe just make metal wire baskets. But more than often, you're just looking for like the material through ThomasNet and reaching out to them to make a custom product. So those are some ways to find suppliers, especially if the product is not already on Amazon. All right. Next question. What happens to returned items? Can those be resold? Yes, they can be resold. So what happens with returned items? Maybe I can show this on screen. I'll try to get it ready for you here. But when a customer returns an item, it can either be Amazon will receive it and basically make the determination, is this able to be resold or not? And depending on what the product looks like when they come back, meaning is it out of its original packaging? I think that's like the main thing. Is it out of its original packaging? Was it actually used? If it was and it's still in good condition, Amazon can sell it as used on your listing, or you could sell it used on your listing. Now, if it's not in good condition, or if it's in perfect condition, then it just goes right back into your inventory, right? So that's your two options. If it comes back and it's in good condition, back in inventory. Okay condition, looks like it's used, you can sell it as used. Now, if it comes back and it's been clearly opened, clearly modified, or changed, or just like Amazon just believes it was used heavily, then you have a few options. Amazon can dispose it for you for a small fee, just them getting rid of it for you. You can liquidate it, which means Amazon's going to basically sell it for like at least half off somewhere, and you'll get a small kickback of that. Like in my experience, selling a $37 product, we get back like $3 to $7 maybe on that liquidation sale. And then the third option is returning to an address. So you could return it to your home. Is it a product that you can actually use, or can you gift it to somebody? That's always a good option. You will have to pay for that shipping cost, but it's typically not that much. But that depends on the size of your product, of course, and shipping rates for your product. So what I would do is figure out just what makes sense financially, if it needs to be disposed, liquidated, or returned. And then also just figure out, like, can you use that product? Could you sell it on Facebook Marketplace? Could you sell it on eBay? Could you make more money if you were to return it, considering the shipping costs, and selling it somewhere else, or giving it away to a friend or family member? So those are your options. Hopefully it comes back in a good condition, whether it's used or in perfect condition. But hopefully now have a little better understanding of what happens when a product gets returned. All right, next pre-submitted question. Could you explain the criteria for a G10 exemption and clarify why we might need a UPC? Yes. So a G10 exemption, let me start there. If you're going to be selling on Amazon as a private label brand, you have essentially three options, I would say. And the first one is getting a trademark for your brand. Now, this is by far the best option because your brand name is protected. No one else can use it. You also get access to brand registry, which means you have more ability to, you have more stuff that you can play with, right? Like in Seller Central, you get more functionality that helps you sell on Amazon a little bit better. So that's the greatest reason, or one of the greatest reasons of being brand registered. You just have more capability as a seller. But also it's just like the whole branding component, right? No one's able to take your brand name. If you came up with an awesome brand name and logo, you don't have to worry about someone ripping you off in the future. So, and then you're also building a brand, right? Like when you go off Amazon and create social media assets and start to really cultivate a brand of people that just love your products and love your company, having it trademarked is awesome for that. The second option is you can list it on Amazon. You can list a product on Amazon without a trademark, and you can still use a brand name. And so this is the G10 exemption. So when you list your product on Amazon, let me actually show this real quick. I think this will be helpful. I'm just going to go to catalog, add products, pretend like I'm adding a product on Amazon or to Amazon. And let's type in, oh, I don't know, dog diapers. Okay. So I'm going to select confirm here. These are just like the categories that I'd be selling in, even though it looks a little bit wrong. Whatever. If I needed to select the actual category, I can come here and just select it. But for this example, I'll click confirm. Selling dog diapers. And now what I can do here is, these are brand names that we do have registered, so ignore that. But let's just say I want to have a brand name, but I don't have a trademark, right? So what I'm going to do is just type in my brand name, which will be Doggy Drawers. Good brand name, by the way, right? And I'm going to select, I don't have a product ID. Now, what this is going to do when I click next is it's going to say, hey, that's not a brand name that you registered with us. So what you need to do is you need to either enter a brand name that's been approved, or you can do a G10 exemption, even though it says UPC exemption. It's the same thing. So what you can do is you can apply to sell. Again, this allows you to use a brand name on Amazon, but not have it actually trademarked. And you can watch this awesome video, but really what you just need to know, and I would not skip over that video, I'm just moving past this at a moderate speed. You can put a website in here if you have one. It could help you because this is a submission to create a website. If you're going to do that anyways and use your brand name in it, I'm sure they probably have a automated system that checks to see if you do, and that just helps your case a little bit more. But if not, go ahead and select your category. What was our category here? I'm just going to go dog training pads and trays. Dog training pads. It doesn't have to be perfect for this example, but to show you, I'm going to select that. And then here's the main thing here. You need to first just read this information, but the major thing you need to do is take images, at least 2, of your brand name, in this case, Doggy Drawers, on the product and its packaging. Now, sometimes it's not going to be able to work on the packaging. You can't just like, if you're selling napkins, for example, you can't just put your brand name on the napkin, but that's why you can just do it on the packaging too. So what you need to do is just really make sure you're checking off all these requirements, and then you're dropping the files here. Put your email address and an optional phone number. And so the major thing here is you basically just need to show that your brand name is on the product, right? How you can do that is by asking your supplier to send you a sample with your brand name on the packaging and expedite that. So maybe it's air shipping. And that's the best option because you can actually get your product with the brand name on it, again, on the product or its packaging, sent to you so that you can take that picture, send it to Amazon, and at the same time, you can send that sample to a photographer to start taking images of it, basically filling out your listing photography and maybe even making a video for your listing. So that's the best option. The second option is more of a hack, and I've done it myself, so I'll give you my experience and show you what I did, or tell you what I did. And that was to essentially print out my logo or my packaging and just add it to the product. So if I had like a product that was wrapped in plastic, I would take my logo, put it on to where it doesn't look like I just taped it on, but make it look like it was actually on there. And I think I did tape it, but like I just made sure it looked like it was actually on there. And I took that photo of my packaging and I used that. And I did it from different angles too. That's what I did. And you just got to be careful because the one thing you can't do, I think it says in here somewhere, yeah, it can't be digitally altered. So you can't just like Photoshop it on. I'm sure they have some sort of software that can recognize it. So I would just do this option here, similar to what I recommended, is to get your logo designed, whether you do it yourself or hire somebody, and put it on a sample of your product that doesn't have the brand name already on it. But ideally, you just have your supplier expedite a shipment to you of just 1 unit or maybe 2 with your branding on it. And so that's what you need to do for a G10 exemption. Now, the third option, going back to what I was talking about earlier, there's 3 options. You either get an LLC, a trademark, and you sign up for brand registry, or you do a G10 exemption with a brand name. The third option is a G10 exemption without a brand name. And that's just when you select here, and it's going to automate to generic. Now, the downside of doing this, let me come back to full screen. Let me zoom in for this. No, I won't do that. So the downside of doing generic is that once you go generic, you can't go back. And that's unfortunate. And what that really means is once you list as generic, if one day you go, oh, I actually do want a brand name. I want to brand my product, whether it's with a G10 exemption or with a trademark, you can't do that on the same listing. Amazon will require you to create a brand new listing. So that means you may have got hundreds of reviews on your generically listed product. Even though it's the exact same product, Amazon doesn't care. You'll have to create another listing to add a brand name to it. So generic locks you in for life by not having a brand name. So I would always recommend coming up with a brand name, making sure it's unique. Let me show you that real quick. So you want to make sure it's unique in the country you're selling in. In the US, you can just go to USPTO to search for trademarks. Click trademark search here. I'm going to go, what did I say? Doggy Drawers. That was a good name. Doggy Drawers. and click search. And actually what I'm going to do is do parentheses around it. I can actually see one there. And that way I can get rid of all these other ones that they just don't say doggy drawers. And I only see one, but it's dead. And I can click into it and I can see it officially died 24 years ago. So I could actually use doggy drawers. It's a unique name. Now, the downside of getting a G10 exemption with a brand name like doggy drawers is one day somebody could come up with that brand name themselves, trademark it, and now if Amazon finds out, which I'm sure they would somehow, then now I got to figure out a new brand name. I actually don't know what happens when that happens, but I assume you have a short period of time to either get off Amazon or to change your brand name. And so that's going to be a headache because you probably have to submit a bunch of paperwork and more images of your new brand name on your product. So those are your options. So hopefully this helped answer your question. But sorry, I'm looking for the next question now, but or I want to make sure I answer this question right. Yeah. And so essentially let me come back to this question real quick. Why you want a UPC is basically one, you can get a trademark. To get a trademark, you will need the UPC. But two, it just standardizes your product. So if you want to sell your product anywhere else off Amazon, you can now have this barcode that is very clearly describing your product for retail companies or retailers like Walmart or eBay or something. But it also makes it easier to communicate your product to customers. So Amazon, once they have your UPC barcode, they now can read on the back end through GS1, which is where you buy it, what your product is. And I believe there's some SEO benefit there, even if it's very marginal, that Amazon now goes, okay, I can verify that this product is a doggy diaper. And so I'm going to now verify that keyword phrase for this product. And therefore, I now know that's what that product is. And so it may help you show up more in search, but a UPC is great for trademarking your brand eventually. And you will need one from the website gs1.org. But yeah, all right. So let's get to this next question. Who pays for custom fees when importing goods from Alibaba? Is it me or is it my supplier? So it really depends on your shipping terms, often called Incoterms. Now, I actually have an example I wanted to show you. I brought this up ahead of time. And I wanted to show you two real quotes or orders that we purchased from our supplier. And we typically do our purchasing from our supplier on Alibaba because it has what's called trade assurance, which you scroll down here, it tells you kind of how that's protecting us by making sure our supplier gives us the product that we bought and they do so timely. It just protects us and helps us get a refund if anything were to go wrong. But I wanted to show you this real quick. So there's two orders. This first one is an order for $3,800 here. We ordered 504 units at a retail price of $7.55 per unit. So $3,800. That's just for the product now. And so we also shipped it through the sea and they charged us $1,300 for that. And our shipping terms were DDP. So DDP is essentially where the supplier is doing everything, right? So they will, after making your product, they will take your product to the port in the country that they're working in. So in this case, China. They'll make sure it gets put on the boat. They'll make sure it gets off the boat, in this case, the US. And they'll make sure it gets off the boat in the US and into an Amazon warehouse. DDP, they do everything for you. That cost is bundled into this overall cost of $1,300. Now, we don't have it itemized out here. Maybe nice to itemize it out, like how much they're charging us for all that. But essentially, the cost of shipping it and for them to do that work of getting it end to end cost us $1,300. We technically did pay for the custom duties and taxes, but it wasn't something that we had to deal with ourselves. We didn't have to do much of that paperwork or pay anything separately. They took care of it. Now, here's another example of another order where we purchased a lot more inventory this time, about 2,000 units at the same product price, $755, and you see what that cost us there. Also, I don't know what this other cost is. It's basically the same thing, but it's $1. They just added $1. I don't know why. But either way, why I wanted to show this one is because it's a different shipping term. This time it's EXW. EXW is the complete opposite of DDP. This is where we actually step in and have to get it all the way from our supplier's warehouse to an FBA warehouse, FBA fulfillment center. And now, obviously, we didn't do that. We hired a freight forwarder to do that for us. And so I believe here we used a company like Flexport or someone else that we found through the website freightos.com, which is almost like Alibaba for freight forwarders. You can compare different freight forwarders and get different quotes back. And that's what we did. We found a freight forwarder. I don't know why we did that. Typically, we like doing DDP because it's more simple. But maybe what we found in this case is we always compare that the DDP option for some reason around this time was more expensive than if we were to do our own freight forwarding or find our own freight forwarder for cheaper. And so that's what we did. We had a freight forwarder go and pick it up and do all that work for us. And so we did pay a fee. It's not included in our order cost from our supplier, but it is included in our cost from the freight forwarder. Now, I didn't have time to pull that up here. In fact, I don't think we use the freight forwarder anymore, so I believe we lost access to our account. We probably have the file somewhere, or the transaction order somewhere, but we ended up paying the custom duties and taxes, but we didn't. It kind of, again, like that first example, it's added into our overall shipping cost. It could be itemized down, but it's nothing that we personally had to like wait on, or once it hit that point, we had to go, okay, here's the money for import duties. It was kind of just added on to our shipping costs and then taken from our account whenever it happened. So that's this is a good example of what happens to some of our orders and some experience. Hopefully it's helpful seeing that actual order and kind of like us doing it. So I thought that was a good example to show, but let me know if you're in the chat if you have any other further questions on that. Okay, so now let's get into the next question. My listing has multiple variations. Should I run PPC ads on all of them or only one? It's a good question. So imagine you have a listing with a few variations. You're like, hey, do I need to run ads on all of them? Should I run ads on all of them? The answer is it really just depends. But to be more specific with you, from my experience, what I like to do or what I've noticed is if your variations cost different amounts, let's say you have variations that aren't just like colors, right? Different colors, but maybe at different sizes or pack sizes. You sell a 1-pack, a 3-pack, and a 10-pack. That 10-pack is going to be way more expensive. So that 10-pack, if you were to run ads on all 3 variations, is going to be less likely for a customer to click on. Now, maybe if the search term is like, let's pretend you're selling, I don't know, these coffee mugs, and you sell them in a 10-pack, a 3-pack, and a 1-pack. If that search term is coffee mugs in bulk, then that search term that keyword will you'll probably have a high click-through rate on your 10-pack variation that costs more. But for most other keywords like coffee mug, the lower priced variation will probably be clicked more. And so what I've seen is when I'm advertising all my variations with different price points on Amazon, the cheaper one, or maybe one that's like in the middle there, one of those 2 variations always perform best because they get people into the listing. And then once they're in the listing, they're like, oh, wait, do I need 3 of them? I could save money if I buy 2 more, or if I get like a bulk order, or I can save a lot more money if I buy 10. So the cheaper variation typically does a better job at pulling people in. It typically converts more or better as well. But that doesn't mean you should only run one ad. I will typically always test. So if I'm launching a new product with different variations and I don't already have this information, I will run ads for a couple months, not just a few weeks, because I want a lot of data to really back up my eventual decision. And then I'll realize, okay, if one of the variations or 2 even aren't performing well at all, I'll just cut them. Or I'll maybe slow their ads down. I'll bring the budgets down significantly or bring the bids down significantly as well. And again, just through my experience, I found that the cheaper product does better at bringing people in. But what you might find, and there's a report in your campaign manager and Seller Central's campaign manager, which is where you manage all your advertising campaigns. And that report, I believe it's called like the purchase product report. I could be wrong on that, but it tells you what products people buy regardless of the ad they came from. And so what's great about that is I found quite a few times in different accounts that I've worked on or managed that there are certain campaigns or products that do really bad, right? Like the ACoS is extremely high. They just don't convert well. But when people come from that ad, they end up buying other products on my listing. So it's like a loss leader. Costco is really good at this with bringing you into their warehouses to get those hot dogs, those $1.50 hot dogs and sodas, or gas, or toilet paper, or water. But a lot of those products they actually lose money on. but it gets you into the store and it gets you to buy other things that make them money. So sometimes you may find that's the case. Make sure you're digging through those reports and learning more about those reports and what information they get back to you. Again, the one I look up, Google this report if you can. I think it's the purchase product report, and find more about that. But again, I think the overall answer I would say here is to test and to figure out what your conversion or ACoS looks like after a few months of learning and getting enough data to really make those assessments. Good question. Next question. Amazon won't allow me to list my product in the same subcategories as my competitors. How can I bypass this? Just real quick before I answer this question, if you're new or joining this, I will be answering some live questions here shortly. We only have a few more pre-submitted questions and then we'll get to your questions. So make sure to drop those in the comments below and then make sure to join every Thursday. We do this every single week. You can ask your questions in the comments of this video and we'll take them over to next week's video and put those in the pre-submitted questions, which is like what I'm answering right now. But to get back to this question here, yeah, this is a good question because I've ran into this quite a few times where you're listing a product on Amazon and you know the categories that your competitors are in. So you're trying to add your product into that exact category, or the subcategory, I should say. But it's just not letting you. It's for some reason, Amazon's automated system is like, you can't do it in that category. And so why that is because, I don't know, Amazon just like, for some reason might think that's not the right category for you. And that's okay, because as long as your product is in the bigger category or in a subcategory that is like close enough, what will happen over time, once you get enough sales, Amazon will recategorize you for that product or for that category. And let me show you an example of this actually. So I have an example on screen here of a product, which is it's a pail, it's a bucket, and it can be used for a variety of purposes. Now, this is a product that is actually sold to businesses. So it's a commercial pail. You could buy this for your home, but its main intent is for businesses like janitors or just businesses in generals that are going to put some heavy duty things in here. Now let's go down to the categories real quick. You'll notice there are 3 subcategories and there's one higher category. Now, commercial mop bucket, if I just open that up real quick, you'll see that that's under the industrial and scientific. So exactly what I was talking about, where most of our competitors are. And you'll see here, there's a product there. So this product is like in with like its competitors. Now the second one is household mop buckets. And if you click on that, that's now under health and household, way different from the industrial and scientific categories. And the reason why that is because Amazon realized people are shopping in those categories and buying this type of product. So like I said earlier, this is a product that its main intent is for commercial use, like for businesses, but people for regular household needs are using search terms and maybe even using the category, browsing by category, but most likely the search terms to buy this product. So Amazon's like, hey, this product fits in that other subcategory. Let's move it over there too. It's not like taking it out of one, moving the other, it's adding. And so why that's important is because on Amazon, if you're just not allowed to add it to one category, don't worry, because it will be recategorized appropriately later on. So hopefully that helps answer your question on just, for some reason, like why does it do that? Which again, I don't really know the answer right now. But it answers the question of like, what happens and does that really affect my listing? And the answer is no. Yeah. All right. So let's now get over to our next question. And that is, because Amazon is a marketplace facilitator, do we have to do anything on our end with sales tax? In the US, no. So this is a newer adjustment or update, I believe, starting this year actually, where depending on previously, like depending on your sales nexus, meaning like how much business you did in certain states, you may, if you reach a certain threshold, you would have had to like do your own sales tax or report it, at least, and each state would tax you differently. Now that responsibility is fully on Amazon. So Amazon is the one that collects your sales tax. And at the end of the year, they are the ones that send it to the IRS, so you don't have to. So short answer, no, you don't have to worry about sales tax, or at least collecting it and submitting it yourself. in the US. Now, I would still say research more into that because each state might be different, but I do believe it's a federal update. I could be wrong on that. I'm not a tax professional, so I want to be careful here. I want you to be careful with what I'm saying here, but from my experiences, Amazon will do it for you, but just double check that, especially like you can look up some more information on your specific state just to confirm that, but I believe that's the case. And trying to think if there's anything else that's helpful here. No, that's really it. I mean, short answer, I think, is Amazon does it for you now, which is awesome. All right, last pre-submitted questions, and then we'll get to your live questions. So feel free to drop them down below in the chat if you're watching live. And if you're not watching live, drop them in the comments. We'll get to them next week. So this last question, pre-submitted, is what's the best strategy to revive my listing as I previously was selling 800 to 1,000 units per month? The best strategy, that's a good one because there's a lot of different strategies. Now, I will say this, regardless of whether you are like your product listing is tanking or you're just starting on Amazon or whatever the case is, I'm just going to answer this more globally, not just specifically for someone who's trying to revive their listing, because this answer would be the same regardless. The most impactful thing you can do are your images and your videos. The reason I say that is because images and videos sell. When somebody looks at a listing, they're looking at the images. Now, the text on your page, the copy, and your title, your bullet points, and description, they're all really important, but they're mostly important for the sake of bringing people to your listing, right? So it's great for Amazon, all your text on your listing, to help Amazon realize what your product is so that it can be more accurate in displaying it in front of customers. The other benefit of text in your listing is for reassurance. So when someone visits your listing, for example, if I'm going to list listing here and I'm like, oh, I need it to be, I need to fill 2.4 ounces. Well, right down here, I see 2.4 ounces is what this is capable of doing. Or maybe I really want this polypropylene feature, whatever that means. But that's like important to me. Well, thankfully, I see it here in the title. I see it here in the bullet points. And now this is a bad example. This product really doesn't have a description, even though it does. But the description even is a little bit more helpful for me to understand what this product means. So it is helpful for a conversion, for the conversion component. But the bigger thing that sells on your listing are your images and your videos. So to put this in action, what I would do first is to A/B test my main image. So whether you're going out and getting a new image from something that you can take or something that you can hire someone else to do, I would go get a new main image and A/B test it within Amazon. Amazon has a feature called like A/B experiments, I think it is, or custom experiments. You can just type that into the search bar in your Seller Central account. And essentially what that's going to do is allow you to A/B test a bunch of different things. Your main image, your A+ content, I believe, and maybe your title and bullet points. I could be wrong on that, but there's a few different things that you can A/B test. And so A/B testing your main image would be the first thing I would do. That's going to help you understand if there's a better way to get people to click on your product and get more people just to consider your product. The second thing I would do with your images is fill out or get more better images for images 2 through 9 or 8 or 7 or how many images you have. And again, I think that's the most impactful thing you can do is update your images because that has the greatest effect on conversion. If you don't have a video, I would highly recommend adding a video to your listing, and then either with that same video or with a different video, cutting it up into an advertisement. And so that would be like a 15 to 30 second video that you can use with Amazon ads. So specifically, the campaign is called Sponsored Brand Video. And those campaigns, in my experience, are super, super profitable. And again, that's just in my experience. But I found that all the video ads I run, for the most part, as long as I've dialed in my keywords and my targets, so if I'm advertising on ASINs, as long as those are good, it converts very well because it's a very informative ad. It's not just like a placement on the search results play that has the word advertisement there. It's actually informing the customer about your product before they are even in the listing. So getting a video done for your listing is great. And then getting a video done for your advertisements is also great. The other things I would do is to optimize your listing. And this is a longer term play, but optimizing your listing will have a great impact on discoverability of your product. And again, like I said, conversion of your product as well. If you're adding in keywords that shoppers are looking for to confirm things about your product before buying, that's great. But also, the bigger thing is just getting more more SEO value out of your listing, which will help you appear more in Amazon search results. Again, it's a longer term payoff because if you change your listing today, it's not going to just magically show up for more keywords tomorrow, but it will eventually show up for more keywords over time. And then the third thing I would say, so you have images and video, kind of grouping those together, optimize your listing copy. The third thing I would say is dial in your advertising. Figure out when you want to be profitable and when you're okay with losing a little bit of profitability. And in some cases, maybe even losing money on your transactions, on your advertising transactions. And what I mean by that is throughout the year, there are certain moments where you want your product to be selling like hotcakes. And a good example of this is before Prime Week or before Christmas. And these are like a month or two before those dates. And why I say that is because those dates, there's going to be a lot of people shopping on Amazon. A lot of people have money in their hands and they're just wanting to spend it. And so if you can get your product ranked higher before those moments, you have a more likelihood of being seen by those people that are just hungry to buy your product. So typically throughout the year, what I would do is I'll identify moments where I want to make sure my ranking is up, my BSR is up. So that way I can go to back to my advertising campaigns, increase my budgets, increase my bids, add more campaigns even. And I'm okay with being less profitable in those moments because again, I'm just trying to rank more at that time to like speed up for these big moments. And there's other times, which is most of the time throughout the year, that I either want to recover from what I just mentioned, those big moments, or just I want to settle down and be more profitable and have a sustainable business. So I identify those moments and then dial back my ad spend. What's really important with this is you need to understand what your break-even ACoS is. There's a lot of good videos on YouTube or articles on Google. If you just type in break-even ACoS, and you can probably just add Amazon to that search as well, and it'll show you exactly how to find that number. And what that number will tell you is anytime you're above it, you're losing money. Anytime you're below it, you're making money on those advertising sales only. And so now you don't need every keyword and every campaign to be under that, but as a whole in your account, you want to be under that in those profitable moments that you've designated. And so that means you could have one keyword or campaign even that's well above it because maybe it's more important to spend money on that and to just be more aggressive there. But as long as you have other campaigns that are weighing the average down to your break even, then at least you're profitable as a whole. So those are the three things I would recommend doing to revive any listing or just to get started on Amazon and increase your ranking over time. Again, I want to show you this video here over on YouTube. If you just go to our video tab, we have a bunch of helpful videos that would be helpful for this, but I think this one right here, Outrank Your Competitors, is a good watch. Maybe before watching that, you could find this video here to identify long tail keywords that are less competitive and easier to rank for. And then, oh yeah, this is a good one too. We talked about images. I should have mentioned this earlier, but 20 types of images that convert. So these would just show you examples of images that do really well on Amazon to give you a little more inspiration of like what images you should, hire out to a photographer or take yourself. All right. That's all the pre-submitted questions. I'm going to answer your live questions now. Give me a moment. Just need to drink some water here. Also, let me know, guys, how you're enjoying this series so far. Really, we do this every Thursday, where we answer all your pre-submitted questions from last week's video in the comment section. We also have a community post. So each week I'll post sort of like this same image here. Sometimes we always try to find different colors and different photos of Lenny and I, but you can actually add your questions here. And if they're not duplicated, I'll take these questions and then add them to pre-submitted questions as well that we get from our video comments. But yeah, just real quick, hope you guys are getting value from this video or from this series as a whole. It's great seeing familiar faces. Oftentimes in our live chats, whether we're doing a live video like this or when we're premiering a video, like a produced, edited video, we still premiere it always. To be in the chat with people watching it live for the first time is always fun. So it's great seeing familiar faces. And I see all the time, like people right now in the chat that like I'm familiar with. You guys come back week in, week out, and I love it. You guys are always commenting on our videos. You're always in our community post, engaging and talking with us and helping other sellers. So I want to thank you for that. And hope you guys, again, are just getting a lot of value from the series. We really do love talking to you guys and hearing from you firsthand. So any feedback you have would be great. But now I'll go into these questions. Give me a moment real quick just to kind of collect myself and try to figure out. There needs to be a better feature. YouTube should like tell you when there's a question versus any of your type of comments. But let's see real quick. Okay, give me one moment here. Okay, let's go ahead and start with these questions from earlier. Tom, you asked, I've received quotations from different suppliers and their unit price for EXW Xworks is much higher than their maximum unit price on Alibaba. Okay, so what they're displaying on Alibaba is lower than the price they're giving you. EXW is basically just them making the product. Does this make sense? Thanks. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, Tom, yeah, so the price you see on Alibaba is always a general quote. And what's interesting about that is these suppliers don't update that too often. So if their unit cost does go up or throughout the year, their shipping cost will go up. So in Q4, towards the end of the year, it's more expensive for shippers to ship. And therefore, they have to pass it on to us, the buyer. So it is going to be more expensive in different parts of the year for shipping. But sometimes supplier unit costs do go up as well or fluctuate throughout the year, depending on just what's going on with them. And so those quotes you see on Alibaba, I'll try to pull one up here real quick just for those who maybe new to Alibaba, aren't always the most accurate. So, here I got just looking at these pee pads for dogs, 2 cents. If I even click into it, I'll see, okay, so if I buy, depending on how much I buy, you can see the price ranges here. Now, the reason why this is going to be different, again, than the quote that you probably have gotten on your quotation is because those Alibaba quotes, those little quotes on the screen there, aren't including shipping. They're just including the product price. And again, those can fluctuate as well, and they're probably not updating those on a regular basis. So that's okay. We always recommend using the Alibaba quote as a starting point and just using that, again, as a starting point, but understanding it's going to be a little bit more expensive than what you see on screen there. There's shipping costs. There's going to be taxes, duties, tariffs. There's and now there's like that inbound placement cost that I mentioned earlier in the video, which is basically just the cost of getting it to Amazon. Your supplier doesn't charge you that, but it is just a good starting point though. But I wouldn't use it as like a fully accurate source of information, just to like directionally tell you how expensive a product will be. But EXW, maybe to answer that last question, is essentially just the shipping term. So that means EXW, you have to get somebody, a freight forwarder, to come and pick up the shipment from their warehouse or at an agreed upon area and then get it all the way into Amazon. That's good if you can find a freight forwarder that can do that for you. I personally like doing DDP because a lot of suppliers that I've worked with have their own freight forwarders that they work with and they're comfortable with, and they have probably good rates with each other. And so that's what we do here at Jungle Scout is we do DDP, technically the opposite of EXW, where the supplier handles everything. And that includes them working with a freight forwarder to get our product all the way into Amazon's warehouses. So it doesn't matter which one you do, as long as you just are comparing all the different options. Getting quotes from your supplier for EXW, DDP, and even FOB are good options. And then getting quotes from freight forwarders are good options too. Cool. Next question. I have my first product at my house for FBA. Awesome. It's 9 SKUs, small, medium, large, on 3 different sets. Okay. How can I alter the titles of my listings and change the bullet points? I have a basic membership with Jungle Scout. So yeah, once you get your products listed on Amazon, so you said you have 9 SKUs, those would be 9 separate listings that will all fall under one parent ASIN. So you'll set up a parent ASIN. Let's pretend you're selling, like you said, maybe it's like some sort of clothing. So let's just say you're selling, I don't know, orange. Let's say you're selling a t-shirt. So the t-shirt would be the parent ASIN, and the child ASINs would be your variations. So your small, medium, large, and then maybe different colors as well. So to alter the titles and listings, you basically, I would assume, are only changing a few features, right? It's the same product, but it's just different sizes and sets. So I don't know if that's like a 2-pack, a 3-pack, or something else. But if there's only a few different things you need to change, the best way of doing that is just figuring out what those lines are on your copy, right? So like in your title, it's probably gonna be the exact same title for all 9 SKUs, but the end of it or somewhere in between is gonna be slightly different. So just figuring out where those moments are, and maybe creating like a notes document where you just have all the different variations laid out there, so you can copy and paste those into each listing. Now you can do that on Seller Central, or you can use Jungle Scout's listing builder tool, and that will essentially allow you to edit your listings and also see which keywords you should bring into your listings, which that's helpful for another reason outside of what you're here for, and that's to figure out how to I guess alter those little features on each of those. So I think the best way of doing it is having one screen open with all your variations and your attributes that are different, and then just literally copy and pasting those over into those little moments in your title, bullet points, and description that need to be changed. So it's a little manual, but you just do it once and you don't have to do it again in terms of just like placing your listing and putting it in the spot. But hopefully that was helpful, or hopefully I answered exactly what you're looking for. All right, I am a newly registered seller, but I submit my store to get it published first, or do I submit my first listing to get it approved first? So yeah, if you just signed up for Seller Central, you can have a storefront, which is, I assume, what you're asking here, and then obviously you need a listing. So you would need a listing first. So your listing needs to be there first before it can be added to your storefront, because your storefront is basically going to be holding your listing. Now, I believe you could probably still create a storefront technically and not include your product on the storefront, but that really defeats the purpose of the storefront. You want your storefront to be somewhere that you can drive traffic to, and then people can click your product, which brings you to the listing to buy it. And so I would always start with the listing first, get that built out, and then do the storefront. You'll get far more traffic to your listing than you will your storefront. So focus on that first. Drive ads to it maybe even first, and then if you have time, create the storefront. If you just have one product, the storefront is less necessary. Most people won't just go to your storefront naturally. So just think about that. If you have a low amount of time available to dedicate towards these tasks, I would personally just optimize the listing first, get that all sorted out, and then if you have extra time, create a storefront for it. But yeah. Okay, so let's go on to this next question here. If we keep advertising, we remain in the top 10 to 13 on the first page. Awesome. Even if budget runs out during the day. Okay. If we stop ads though, we drop down in ranking. Launched about 5 months ago, 40 reviews. Awesome. So yeah. And I'm curious, Global Politico, if you're talking about organic or sponsored ranking here. So like the sponsored ranking, certainly, yes, you will drop once you stop advertising, but I'm assuming maybe you're talking about organic rankings, and that makes sense as well. Now, personally, I think through my experience, I would say that if you stop advertising tonight, your organic ranking won't just plummet tomorrow. It will start to go down once your sales velocity goes down on that keyword or for your product, really. But that's totally normal. Amazon's incentivizing you to advertise with improved organic rankings as well, assuming that you're actually converting sales on those keywords. So that's completely normal that you drop a little bit. So yeah, I guess like maybe if you were to, if you're trying to figure out how to advertise less and still increase your organic rankings, the best way is just to make sure you're profitable first on your advertising campaigns. I mentioned this just a little bit ago, but find your break-even ACoS and make sure you're within that range with advertising ads. And then if you're under it, then start increasing your budget. And until you kind of go over that, you can look at your keyword bids more. But once you start going over that, then you can dial it back. But if you're profitable under your break-even ACoS, you can keep increasing that until you kind of feel that your things are getting a little carried away. But hopefully that answers your question, and it's totally normal that that happens. And also keep in mind that what you see, your organic search rankings, like if you were typing your product on Amazon, like the keywords, could be totally different than somebody else, and that's like in a different city even, or in a different state. So these search results are so dynamic. It depends on like location and search term and the customer's browsing history or purchase history. There's so many variables that Amazon uses to determine search ranking. So what you're seeing isn't what everybody's seeing, but it could be in the ballpark. Thought I should throw that in there just for context. All right. Excuse me. All right. I want to start Amazon FBA wholesale in the UK, Can you please tell me that it is profitable to sell in the UK, and what documents do I need, and what about tax is higher in the US? Unfortunately, I don't have any experience wholesaling in the UK specifically. So I won't be able to give you a really good answer here of like, is it profitable? I'm sure it's profitable, but I couldn't tell you what documents you need. And the tax as well is totally different. I know that you guys have VAT, so that's something to consider. But yeah, unfortunately, sorry, I just have no experience in the UK, especially with wholesaling. Hello from France. Awesome. I want to know which address should I put for return product in my Seller Central account. So yeah, the return address depends on if you want your product sent back to your house or not. And now there's certain products that like sellers sell that they could use themselves over and over again. So, think about like disposable products or consumable products. Let's say you sell like disposable forks, right? Well, you could probably use those forks in your daily life. So you can put your return address back to your house. Or if it's a product that isn't consumable, that you could either resell it like on Facebook Marketplace or eBay, make that determination if it's worth your time and if it's actually going to be profitable for you. You have to consider the fact that there's going to be a cost to send it back to you. It's a small shipping cost, very similar to what it would be if you were to send your product to someone in a different state. And that will depend on how far the inventory is and or where it's being sent from, which Amazon warehouse, and then how big your product is and how much it weighs. So consider that. Can you resell it? Can you use it? Or can you give it to a friend or family member? If so, return it back to your house. If that's not an option, or you just don't want a bunch of stuff coming back to your house, and you want to return it somewhere, you could always get a 3PL involved. And those are companies that essentially act as, they could be a storage facility, they could be a fulfillment facility. So if you're selling products off Amazon, they can help you. But in your case, what you might want them for is to basically store the inventory that gets returned. And what they could do is repackage it for you and send it back into Amazon. Now, that's a lot of work, and maybe it's not worth it because there's a lot of cost to ship it twice. And then for maybe that 3PL to package again, the labor and it might not be worth it, but consider that as an option. And if you don't want to do that, which I don't blame you, then the two other options are to ask Amazon to dispose of it, which is your cheapest option usually, or liquidate it, which means they will probably sell it for like half off, 75% off or 80% off, and then give you a small kickback, which is, again, in my experience, like I mentioned this earlier, about a couple $dollars when I'm selling a $37 product. So those are your options really. Hopefully that clears that up for you. All right, so relaxing videos. I told you how to answer your question. So your question here is, you found a product, found a jewelry product. You're a new seller, but also those products catching my eye, but have high competition. Okay, yeah, jewelry would definitely have high competition. One man is selling that product, so he has no patent or trademark. I'm reading the other part of your question here. So he has no patent or trademark. Also, I analyze his pain point also. I'm just going through all your questions here that seem to be connected. Should I move on or not by using your strategy, by moving high ranking keywords and PPC? So yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to summarize this for you because I think a lot of people have a similar question as well. You found a product, jewelry, high competition, but you're able to identify some pain points that you could, I assume, improve. You could ask a supplier to improve these pain points. Is it worth selling in this highly competitive niche by using that strategy of improving the product? So you're actually bringing an improved product to the market. So I would say two things. One with jewelry. I'm not too familiar with jewelry, but from what I know is it's hyper competitive and it's based on big brands, unless the product is really cheap. So people who are buying like maybe like a watch band, they might not care about the brand as long as it's pretty, right? Or as long as it functions in a cool way that's unique. Now, if they're looking for like a watch itself, some people might actually just go for the name brand watch. There's certainly scenarios out there, especially on Amazon, where unknown brands can get away with selling jewelry and be successful, but it's a lot harder in that category because jewelry tends to be really branded. Like people just know the brands that they're going to buy, unless it's an accessory. Like I said, like I rarely see it. It's I actually didn't get it on Amazon. It's like an Armenian Z. So yeah, I got this off Amazon, and to be honest with you, I didn't care about the brand name on it. But if this was on Amazon, I would have still bought it. So think about like, is the product something that like you just you can imagine like wanting to buy from a brand, like an actual watch, or as an accessory or a small, cheaper thing that you can get away with. If that's the case and you can make the product improvement, great. Now, if you identify that it's just way too competitive, then I might skip from that product and go to a lesser competitive category. Now, there's so many different categories that you could find products in that you could improve better. I would assume like with jewelry, you could improve the product a little bit, but that might be a hard sell because I'm curious like what the improvement would be that hasn't already been done. So like an improvement to like a different product that is like functionally different would be a lot easier, I think. But if you think you could really improve the product to stand out, then go for it. But just, keep in mind, like, is it a product that people will buy because it's less expensive, or they're only going to buy the top brands? And a good way you can do that is, sorry, I'll move on from this in a second. Sorry, I'm just getting this ready. You can go on Amazon. You can use a Jungle Scout extension. I'm going to pull it up here. And what I like to do is see if there are any new sellers or small sellers that are doing good. And so how I define new or small sellers is by looking at one like this, like their daily sales or monthly sales or reviews. And typically I start with reviews. So I'll like scroll down here and I'll see, okay, 42 reviews. He actually just launched at 24. So this is actually this is a good column too. Date first available is when they launched on Amazon. So this product launched last month. He has 42 reviews and he's selling a lot of inventory. Now, I'm willing to guess that that's not the case. So, okay, yeah, this is probably what's happening. He's got two variations here. This new variation is probably new, but the old variation is probably old. And so it's not being reflected here. So maybe also what happened is they're just crushing it right now. So they're new to the market and they're blitzing the market. Like they're advertising like crazy. So like these estimates here are maybe pretty accurate. So that they probably are selling a lot. And they're doing that in a short period of time. So, but what I'm trying to find is you can load more to go past the first page is just more suppliers, or I'm sorry, more products that are new that are doing well. So 25 here, doing 23 sales. And once I find more of those and feel comfortable that there are sellers like that, then that makes me a little more confident about launching in that category. Okay. All right. Please advise if a product have higher revenue on extension. So the Jungle Scout extension has higher revenue, but profit calculator shows ROI is lesser. Should go ahead or red flag the product. So you're saying the extension is showing a different profit number. Sorry, the wrong question keeps popping up on screen here. The extension might show a different revenue number. So if I just open this up again, this revenue here, then the profit calculator. So then if you come over here to the net revenue, you can open up the profit calculator. There's no revenue cost here. Hopefully I'm understanding this question better. So the ROI is less. So basically, I maybe what you're saying is like, there's a lot of revenue here. So I'll find a product that's not Amazon, like this one here, or this one here, that's doing like, 40,000 units a month. And you go here and you figure out that like by asking suppliers, it's going to cost you like $10 to make. Your profit is only 80%. If that's what you're figuring out, then you might want to pass on the product, but you just want to make sure that all this information is relevant for your product. So the profit calculator is using this product's dimensions and product tier to determine its fulfillment fee. And if your product's going to be different than this, then none of that actually matters. So you can always use Amazon's revenue calculator by just going to Amazon revenue calculator. Not now. Continue as guest. And here you can like define your product. So if you figure out your product dimensions are going to be different, you kind of type those in here. $33, 0, category. I'm just going to do something random. And then now you could, oh gosh, what did I do? Weight and dimensions. 12. Maybe it's this one. It is accurate. How do you know it's not accurate? All right, that's weird. Oh, it keeps taking me out of the category. Okay, sorry. But once you know your actual dimensions, you can come in here and see your fulfillment costs, that it's more accurate for your product. So that is a really quick way of maybe answering your question. But the revenue is important to understand demand, but your profit calculation is more important to understand, can you actually make money off of all that revenue? Because just because you're seeing high revenue doesn't mean they're actually making a lot of money on the back end after all their cost. But good question. All right, so which category should I start to sell on Amazon that will be ungated? So if you're looking at private label, you wouldn't have to worry about that too much, because most categories you don't need to get ungated on. There are some categories that Amazon has like restricted, or they might be gated, and all you need to do is figure out the requirements for that, so that you can fill out the appropriate paperwork and submit it to Amazon to be ungated. So there are some categories that you just need to do that extra kind of work beforehand. Maybe it's a certification. So if you're selling baby products, for example, Amazon has certain certifications that you need to make sure that you have to make sure, children don't choke on your product or whatever the case is. Now, if you're doing wholesale, which I feel like this question might be coming from, because ungating is more of like a wholesale obstacle. The best way of getting ungated is by actually getting an invoice from the supplier that you're wanting to resell on Amazon. And so if you have that invoice, whether it's for a big round of inventory or maybe just one inventory purchase, like one actual unit that will just help you get ungated, that's what Amazon needs to get you ungated. So I guess maybe the best way of answering this question is just to make sure you're getting that supplier invoice, because it shouldn't really matter what category you're selling in to be ungated, unless it's one of the restricted categories, right? There are certain categories that Amazon it's harder to sell in because there's more restrictions there legally. So yeah, it shouldn't matter as long as you get a supplier invoice though. All right. No one ever talks about customs and customs duty. Excuse me. Can you explain the processes involved in clearing customs and the tariffs? Yeah, I would love to do a video on this too, because I need to freshen up my information as well. This is a topic that most people don't talk about because it's confusing, first off. And second, a lot of people don't deal with it. It gets interesting. I've been selling for a few years and I've been consulting for a few years as well. And I've never actually have done the work of clearing customs myself. And that's because I either use a supplier that is doing that themselves. So they have basically are either they're their own freight forwarder, or they hire a freight forwarder that they work with closely. And that freight forwarder handles everything. They send me things that you need to sign or fill out, but it's not like I'm actually the one initiating all that work. So I usually have always used a supplier that does that, or I've used my own freight forwarder that does that for me. And again, if you're doing your own freight forwarder or finding your own freight forwarder, they'll send you information that you need to fill out. And it's that simple. And then typically you'll give them your card or your payment information. And then whenever you clear customs, they'll either charge you at that point or before. And so it's really just a matter of hiring an expert to do it for you, and then paying. So if in our case, when we pay our supplier to do it, our cost is sort of just bundled in with the overall cost of us shipping the product in a boat overseas. With our freight forwarder, they do itemize it out more, and we know exactly what it costs to do that for the custom duties and taxes. But they just take it from our account that we already have set up with them. So that's it's a really good question. I'll look into like how we can maybe make this more clear or clear it up for people, because as a new seller, when I first started, that was a head scratcher for me too. But I just realized by doing it a little bit more and using suppliers that have their own freight forwarders, or using basically hiring an expert, it's a lot easier because you don't actually have to, I guess, initiate it yourself. They're doing it for you, or at least setting it up for you. All right. With the recent happening in Amazon, what would you advise a low-content Amazon KDP publisher to do? So this is now, talking about, shifting gears for a moment here to talk about KDP, so book publishing. I haven't been kind of living in that space for a little bit. We did a video on KDP not too long ago. It's actually one of our most popular videos now, or I think it's our most popular video now, because that market is huge. Everybody wants to make a book. I mean, it's awesome. It's a great category to be in because there's no inventory costs if you're doing KDP. But I kind of just been out of it for a little bit since making that video. I dived into it like crazy before that, but I don't have any updated information. other than the hardest thing now, and it's the most important thing, is standing out. And I do think this has parallels with private label and wholesale, is you need to figure out a way to stand out. Everybody's doing it. Everybody wants to create a book. Everybody wants to do private label, wholesale, you name it, retail arbitrage, drop shipping, but you need to stand out. And standing out is hard, but if you can do it, that's going to pay dividends, because then you can't have somebody that's going to copy you in 2 years from now. Some kid graduates college and he learns how to use Photoshop really well, or Midjourney, and create this awesome book that's just like a simple idea. Well, if you have a really unique brand or an angle that you can sell or that you come up with, that's going to last you a lifetime. So think about how you can brand your products, whether it's private label, wholesale, or a book. Create a brand. Don't just create a product. And I think that will go a long way in keeping you profitable and really driving sales for a long period of time, regardless of your business model. And I'm sort of going to answer this question the same way. Like, yeah, you absolutely can start a wholesale business in 2024 on Amazon. You can start a private label business on Amazon. You can start any type of business you want on Amazon in 2024. And the same answer will be for 2025 and 2026. Now, there's always going to be new things to consider. There's going to be new obstacles to consider. There's going to be new best practices to consider. So it's always helpful to stay up to date on the information. And that means like what Amazon is changing. So are they adding new fees? Like the inbound placement fee of getting your inventory into a fulfillment center. If so, now you need to think about that when you do product research. You now need to kind of add that into your profit estimations. And so it's absolutely worth it to do any type of business on Amazon. You just have to understand the rules and understand what's changing, and how if something changes, you need to now think of a way to go around it or to work with it, not against it. So yeah, you absolutely can do any business model on Amazon. It's the best place to sell anything. Think about where you buy your products. It's probably mostly on Amazon. And if you don't buy mostly on Amazon, at least in the US, I would say the majority of people do. And I think we have some pretty cool data to back that up. Most people start their product searches on Amazon and finish it on Amazon as well. It's still, yeah, where everybody's going to buy stuff. So just kind of think about that. And they also do a lot of things for you. They do your inventory fulfillment for you, or store it for you. Things that like would make it almost impossible for the average person with a side job or a full-time job even to get started on Amazon, because that whole logistical stuff is so just, I don't know, it's not fun, right? It's more fun doing product research and finding products, branding, social media, doing videos. So yeah, Amazon makes it relatively easy to get going. Okay. So I'm making my way through these comments here, looking for some more questions. Chinmay, so yeah, you're doing wholesale and you see in the buy box, there's 14 sellers, 6 are inactive, and there are 2 sellers whose name is showing up 2 times. If that's happening, it's probably because they have different offers. They could be having an FBA offer, which means it's coming from inventory, or the inventory is coming from Amazon. And the second offer could be that it's coming from FBM, like their own warehouse or their own home. And so the reason there would be 2 different names from the same seller is because there's 2 offers. And the offers could be because of the fulfillment service, or it could also be the condition of the product. It could be new. It could be new like used, new or used like new, used, heavily used or something. But it's usually different offers, fulfillment offers, and conditions. I think that's probably the best word to use here. That's typically the case. If there's more than, if there's something being duplicated, I'm not sure why that is, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. Yeah, it's typically one of those things. How to understand if a supplier is authentic. Whenever I check the supplier's website, there is no reviews. They are not verified. Please tell me how to find authentic suppliers. Yeah, so there's a couple ways of doing it. So on Alibaba, I'll start here first. Let's say you're looking for, pee pads for dogs, right? One thing you could obviously do is just hover over, or you can click it on the listing, is see their profile here. This is good. I mean, you can see 1 year in business. To me, that's not good. But you can do that real quick, and I'll just show you what it looks like. And when you bounce in here, you scroll down. Where is it now? Oh yeah, you come up here, go in their profile, company overview. yeah, they might not have ratings like you mentioned, but I wouldn't even trust the ratings on here. Just, I don't know. You could, but I just personally, I've never reviewed a supplier. I'm sure people do, but yeah. Anyways, come down here. You can learn more about them. You can see their verified capabilities, learn more about what it means. Now, I wouldn't trust this completely. You can come down here and see more things here. You can see inside their warehouse with like these videos or images up here. But what I would do instead, or first I should say, is on the search, there's a few filters here. I have to learn more about this actually. March Expo. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe that's like a physical in-person meetup or something. And Alibaba Guarantee, did they change something? I'll have to look into this too, but I feel like this used to be called something different. But I'll have to look into this. So maybe this one at least is worth looking into. But I've always selected trade assurance. Trade assurance basically is how we order our inventory on Amazon. So we have a supplier that we found on Alibaba, and they have an Alibaba profile. And whenever we buy inventory from them, we use trade assurance, which, as it says here, protects our orders. So if something were to, this question keeps popping up here. Whenever we have inventory that we're ordering, trade assurance just means like if something were to go wrong, like the order just wasn't the right order, it wasn't good quality, or it came very, 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 very late, then Alibaba will help us get a refund on it. And so I think any supplier that doesn't have this and sells on Alibaba, I just personally wouldn't go with, because I like that protection. Now the next one is verified supplier. Now I've always just stuck with this first one. You could do verified supplier Pro, which has 5 years of experience. The other one is basically just saying suppliers that are verified by third-party companies. So I've always started here first, and then if there's a bunch of suppliers, then I go to the verified Pro. And then I believe you can actually come down here. Sometimes you can select more, but one thing I will do as well is I'll go to previously export and select my country, which is the United States. What this is doing is saying, find me a supplier that has trade assurance, offers trade assurance, is verified by a third-party company, and has previously exported products to the United States. So they have experience shipping to the U.S. ports. And that's important to me because I just want to make sure that they're familiar or have worked with U.S. sellers. And so they know what needs to be done or what I could expect. And so now you'll find suppliers here that are more vetted. But I wouldn't stop there. This is where I, again, would look at their profile on Alibaba, just try to learn as much as I can about them. But then what you could do in Jungle Scout, you can go to the supplier tab and go to supplier database. And I'm going to try this right here. It doesn't always work because every supplier is not in here. But what I'm going to do here is, let's go to their profile actually. It's super March. Okay, I'm going to go to company overview. I'm going to copy their name real quick up here. And I'm going to come down here and see how much they've done in shipping, because sometimes it'll tell you that. So, okay, cool. Right here, you can see their main markets are North America, 20%. And that's really all I care about. And so, okay, 20%, but you want to know like kind of how much they've done. You go to Jungle Scout, you can paste in the name. Sometimes you'll notice that the suppliers have long names and they're like duplicated throughout. Oops, you know what I did? I selected product. When you're in the supplier database, you need to do, oh wait. Cool. You need to go supplier, paste that in, and then you'll see the, hopefully you'll see their shipment history is what I'm trying to get at here. And what this will do, so right here, I can view shipments. They only have one total shipment in here, 50 exports. I can view their shipment history over time. And this might be a bad example because basically to get into our supplier database, you got to be on like a public form or database that is, I think, free to get, but Jungle Scout gets it. And essentially it's like, if you do any shipment to US, you're on this public database, but some companies can opt out of it. So in this case, there's only one shipment that might be accurate, but also what I wouldn't, what I could see happening here is that the company just didn't use either that brand name, that company name to ship, or they actually just took themselves off the database, which suppliers can do. So that's another way of verifying suppliers. But I think the better way at least originally to find suppliers, is to do those checks that I mentioned earlier to find verified suppliers that offer trade assurance and ones that have exported previously to your country. So hopefully that answers your question. That's how, at least how I look for suppliers that are legit and authentic, like you mentioned. Let's see here. Can you talk about the shipping fee increasing for small and lightweight products? Is there a way to avoid that? There's no way to avoid any type of increased fee, but the way of mitigating how much you have to spend more, or in some cases, it's going to save you money, is to get more quotes. And it's a little more work on your part. But whenever something happens on Amazon, at least like in terms of shipping, there's always options for you. So if you're using FBA to ship your product, that's, you're kind of stuck with that. So you can't really do anything. But if you wanted to start figuring out whether you can ship your own products cheaper through FBM, so whether it's actually you shipping your products yourselves or hiring a third-party logistics company, a 3PL, to do it for you, figuring out if they can do it cheaper than Amazon could be a good strategy to explore. And now you don't have to completely cut FBA off. I would always use FBA, but have a backup in a 3PL could be a good option for you, especially during Q4 when those shipping costs get more expensive. So there's no way to avoid it if you're using FBA, but there are ways to figure out and calculate if you can do it cheaper than Amazon. But unfortunately, yeah, you just got to kind of bob and weave with Amazon. They have sometimes they do have programs called, what's it called? But there's, for products that are priced under $9.99, typically it's these small and lightweight products, you can apply, or it may automatically just be granted to you for a cheaper fulfillment fee. And so I can't remember the name of that, but just Google kind of, if your product is under $9.99, some of the benefits that Amazon gives you are things like reduced fulfillment fees, which can offset your increased shipping fee in this case. So I would do a little more research there. Okay. Is it a natural progression to eventually create a site to sell your products outside of Amazon? For example, will there ever be a general creation site with all the case study product launched? Good question. Answer the first part of that first. Yeah, I mean, the natural progression of an Amazon business is, the way I see it at least, is you start on Amazon, one product, or maybe you have multiple products, but I would typically start with one product. If there's a need for variations on that product, then that's okay. But start with one product, launch it on Amazon. So one product, one marketplace, and to scale that up to where you're like, okay, I'm confident in this product now. This is a good product idea. There's a lot of demand for it. I'm getting a lot of sales for it, and I'm profitable selling it. And so then once you kind of scale up that one product on that one marketplace, you can now then add a second product or a third product on Amazon and create a brand around the people that bought your first product. Because it's going to be a lot easier to sell it to them than it will be to somebody else. Now, in order to create that brand and to start scaling from a one product business or even a 2 or 3 product business to a brand, yeah, you will need to have some off Amazon presence. And that typically looks like a website. If you're going to be fulfilling orders from your website, it's a great idea. Either way, you'll probably want a website, but it's more important if you're using Shopify to fulfill orders outside of Amazon. So as you scale, that's a great area to put your time into. However, what I would do first, before even starting a Shopify side of my business, is to create a brand in terms of like social media. So I'd create an Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter accounts, whatever, and start posting content. And that could be content not just about your products, but for your audience. So if you're selling pee pads for dogs like we are, the content we would create as general creations would be any type of dog content. Like I have a dog myself, so I would just create fun videos of my dog and just relate to people that have dogs. Like 5 tips for feeding your dog raw food, or making food for your dog. Because I do create food for my dog. We don't give our dog kibble. We go the extra mile to like cook them food. But that would be good content of showing kind of like our recipe and cooking and feeding it to our dog. That would be a good content. And then eventually kind of you slip in your products every now and then. So that's what I would do, is I'd create a brand off Amazon in terms of social media and create content, organic content. You can also advertise as well once you have enough like videos that you can use for advertising. But I would just create content off Amazon, and then eventually you might be thinking, okay, my products a company is now big. I have a brand. Let me now sell off Amazon, because maybe I can get more people to buy or get into like an email list. And maybe I can actually make more money off Amazon than on Amazon. And also it protects you in case something happens on Amazon, your listing gets taken down or something happens to where you're not losing hundreds or thousands of dollars a day because something went wrong on Amazon. So long story short, start on Amazon first, scale up. It might take even a few years before you do anything off Amazon. But if you have extra time, in the meantime, maybe create some social media videos, because social media traffic to Amazon is awesome. I mean, it's traffic you would get for free essentially, where otherwise you might have to pay Amazon for ads. So those are the two things I would do. But again, start first on Amazon, scale up from there, use social media, and then eventually create a website. Now, to answer your last question, we just don't have enough time to do it for Jungle Creations, our brand here at Jungle Scout. We run that, or we manage that account on the side of our actual jobs, which is like content creation and creating videos for Jungle Scout, whether it's like YouTube videos or other videos for our team internally. So we probably don't have the time. I would love to create a TikTok channel for it. And maybe we will. We're going to be coming out with a new series of the $1 million case study soon. We're starting to work on it on the back end, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I just don't think we have the time to do it, unfortunately. But it is kind of cool. I love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. We're running essentially a side business at Jungle Scout, and showing you that it's possible to start an Amazon business and scale it, even on the side of your full-time jobs. Like, we work full-time at Jungle Scout. We have this Amazon side business. And then a lot of us at Jungle Scout, myself included, have like side businesses doing our own Amazon businesses. Or in my case, I consult a lot with other brands as well. So I think it's inspiring watching people do it, especially on the side of their jobs. But we just probably don't have the extra time to do the off Amazon stuff, unfortunately. All right. If I don't use a white background on my main photo, what and when will anything happen? So Amazon wants you to have a white background. That's like the golden rule of your main image, but you will find sometimes in certain categories that that's not the case. And a good example of this is, maybe I'll see if I can find one live. If I just type in like, sorry, 1 second here. Entry mats for business. What you might find is, boom, there are products like this that aren't on a white image. And the reason why is because it's showing the person use it. And sometimes you will find that Amazon is okay with this, even though it's against their terms of service. And they know, because they might say this product has a really good click-through rate. So why would we ruin that by telling them to just do like what this product's doing? Now, this product probably also has a good click-through rate. That's why it's shown on the first page of Amazon. But I would always still do a white background and just avoid any issues from Amazon, because the last thing you want is Amazon to catch you and they're like, hey, you have to change the image. And then you keep getting caught and then you get suspended. So I would always still do a white background. You'll either get flagged immediately for it, because I'm sure they have some sort of like automated algorithm to determine your product's not on a white background, or you'll eventually get caught. Maybe a competitor reports you or something. But you can see in some cases, depending on the context of your product, that you can get away with it. But don't be surprised or mad if you get kind of like the slap on the wrist from Amazon, a warning to take it down or to change your photos. But yeah, just determine the risk you want to take there. I personally wouldn't risk it. I would go with the white background and then maybe A/B test it and see if it holds up. Kindly explain private label and how much investment is required, and how can I sell health and household categories? So to explain private label, I actually wanted to answer part of this question by showing you something that you can download for free. But to explain private label just really briefly, it's when you brand your own products. And it doesn't need to be crazy. Like when I first learned of the word private label and what it means, I was like, I'm not going to brand a product, but it's super easy. So just think about like if you were to have a generic product like this, and pretend this doesn't say Yeti right here. This is a generic product, right? Now this version of it is probably not generic because Yeti's patented this technology, but the idea of like a mug is generic. So if I were to go find a generic mug that's not patented, that's sold like on Alibaba or some other supplier can make it. Again, the technology is not patented. If I can find that generic product, I can slap my own brand name on it. That's private label. And that brand name could be trademarked, where you actually pay to get that brand or trademarked approved and trademarked. That brand name trademarked and approved so no one else can use it. Or you can still use a brand name without getting a trademark. But that's essentially, in a nutshell, what private label is you're taking generic products, you're putting your brand name on it, and you're selling it like it's your brand, and it is your brand. Now, how much budget you need to get started? What I would do is, it totally depends, but there's a really good resource that Jungle Scout just came out with. If you go to our website, jungleScout.com, go to resources, and over here, you'll see the state of the Amazon seller. And if it's not there, it's right here. But click on it, and then you can download this report for free. In the report, basically, we've surveyed and asked over 2,000 Amazon sellers a bunch of questions, including how much did it cost them to start selling on Amazon? When do they become profitable? What categories did they sell in? And you can find a lot of information that's super helpful. Again, just enter this information. You can download it completely for free. And so now I'll try to answer your question, but you can get started selling on Amazon private label for under $1,000. You just need to understand that you want to find products that are the cost of buying it is cheap. And then you also need to understand, if you're starting with around 1,000 or less, that you're going to run out of stock. You're only going to have enough money to buy a small amount of inventory, but that's better than not starting at all. Now, in a perfect world, you have at least maybe $3,000 to $5,000 minimum, and that affords you to be able to go get product photography done. That affords you to order larger rounds of inventory so you stay in stock longer. And it maybe even affords you to have a little bit of an advertising budget in case your ad sales don't cover how much you spent on advertising. Because on Amazon, as long as your ad sales match your ad spend, they don't actually charge you for it. You only get charged when your spend is higher than your ad sales. Hopefully that makes sense. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can start with any amount. I would say 1,000 is probably the bare minimum, but just be aware and be okay with the fact that you might be going out of stock more often in the beginning until you can start to buy more rounds of inventory with the revenue that you made from your sales. And in terms of which category, there's no one category I can recommend. You can download that report to see some like the most popular categories. But I would just find a product first in a category that you either like, know something about, or it's just a really good opportunity. And the ones that I would avoid are just the ones that you can see issues with. And what we define issues at Jungle Scout are things that easily break. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because when you ship these things, they might arrive to the customer broken, and that's going to cost you money because they're going to return it. And then maybe if the customer uses it and breaks it, they might even just return it and say it was your fault or something happens, but they're unhappy with your product because it broke. So avoid fragile products for those reasons. Avoid products that get returned a lot. Again, those are like fragile products, but also things like shirts and clothing. People will buy clothes, myself included, just to try it on. And a lot of times it just doesn't fit right, or doesn't look right, or doesn't feel right. And so they return it. And you want to avoid products that get returned a lot. Another type of product is like products that are very complicated. And a good way of thinking about that are things with like batteries, or things with liability concerns. So like think about like any type of like thing like a charger, or I guess anything with the batteries can be tough because you need to get compliance for that. There's certifications you need to fill out. It's just more expensive. It's hazardous, basically. I try to avoid any hazardous products. Now, liability means like if you're selling a product to kids, then the liability is something could happen with that kid using your product that you can get in trouble for legally. You can get sued if something tragic were to go wrong that happened because of your product. And then also with kid products, this also goes for like vitamins and things you put in your body, like food items. There's more compliance and there's more paperwork you need to fill out to be certified or approved to sell those products. So those are the type of things I'm thinking about. I'm basically trying to find products that are easier to sell than these highly complicated products on Amazon. That's why we sell washable pee pads for dogs. It's one of the reasons, because it doesn't require any crazy certifications, or there's no liability that we can that we understood that would happen. So yeah, try to find relatively easy products. So that's what I would look for when looking at categories specifically. I have an LLC in Delaware. Do I need a resale certificate from doing private label? I'm trying to remember. That's a good question. I feel like I should know this. I don't think you need it. I think what it helps is with your taxes. I could be wrong on that. A resale certificate basically just helps you save money on taxes because it tells the government that you're buying inventory to resell. And a lot of times it's usually like the manufacturer, the supplier for like wholesale typically wants you to have that because that means like they don't have to worry about the taxes. It's on you. So for a private label, that's a good question. I wish I knew this. I feel like I should have known this because I think I have a resale certificate for my private label business, but good question. Sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head right now. But good question. That's actually something, if you ask ChatGPT that question, I bet we could get that figured out. I'll do that after the stream ends, but yeah, good question. Yeah, what's the best way to decide on how much products I should send into FBA for my first time? I have one product, 3 variation sets of 2. Okay, so you want to know how much you should send to Amazon. What I would do is a few things. One, you just need to determine how much money you have and make sure you're not just putting it all in inventory. So the biggest cost to me outside of inventory is always product photography and videography. Once I have, oh my gosh, once I have images and videos done and accounted for, the rest of that could go towards inventory, but I always put a little bit aside for advertising just in case I need it, which a lot of times at the beginning you will, because your ads aren't going to be that profitable. So you probably will spend more than your advertising sales will count for. And so then from there, you basically just have a set of money for inventory, and you can spend it all on one round of inventory, or you can split it into 2 rounds. How I would figure out how much that is by looking at sellers, on Amazon, the new sellers, and figuring out how much they're selling in their first couple of months. And so what I'll do is I'll open up the extension. I'll typically want to get more data in here. So I'll click load more to go past the first page on Amazon. And then what I'm looking at is either the state first available column to find sellers that are new, or I'm looking at sellers with a low review count to determine if they're new. And so I can come over to these filter results here. I'm going to do date range 1 year. So show me products that were launched in the past 1, or I'm going to do 2 years because this is a weird category. But I would do like one of these 2, 1 year or 2 years, click apply, and then see what's left here. So 32 products were launched in the past year. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of these products that have these insane amount of sales because these are outliers. And most likely when you go to their listing, they have multiple variations like this, and only one of those variations are new. So it's kind of like skewing this data here. So what I'll do is I'll go to monthly units sold here, and it's a maximum, put like, this is per month, maybe put like 500. This is a starting point here. Click apply, and that kind of gets rid of some of your outliers here. And you can see the average monthly sales for these products are 83. And you kind of scroll down, you can see again, there's some outliers here. There's some getting like 35 a month, 20, 200 a month. And so what I would basically do is take a ballpark range of like this number or some of these numbers down here and times it by 2 or 3 months. So basically 2 or 3 times, because you want to be in stock for at least 2 to 3 months on average. When you go past 3 months of inventory, you start paying long-term storage fees, or it starts getting more expensive because you pay every day or month that your product's stored in inventory. So 3 months is sort of like the sweet spot that you want to stay in stock for. So I'll typically maybe I'll go like 100, just round up here. And so I would set in maybe 300 minimum into Amazon, my first order. Now you got to remember that it's going to take at least 2 to 3 months probably for your product to be shipped into Amazon if you're doing ocean shipping. If you're doing sea shipping, you could expect a month or 2 in that range, but sea shipping is cheaper. So I would typically plan for 3 months of inventory by looking at what other people are selling when they're first launching and how fast they're able to sell, and do it that way. Don't be afraid to go out of stock. It is, not a good thing to consistently do as a business, but in the beginning, you're trying to figure out your sales velocity. You're not trying to stay in stock too long so that you're piling up crazy storage fees. So I would, just kind of do that little calculation there to figure out a rough estimate of how much you should send in. But hopefully that was helpful. You could always go a little bit more. It's okay to kind of pay more in storage your first time, but I guess generally we like to say aim for 3 months of inventory and always send in more inventory to stay in stock for just 3 months. So it's better to do more shipments with less inventory than it is to do less shipments with more inventory. That way you're avoiding those costly long-term storage fees. All right, we're gonna do like 8 more minutes here because we're going on 2 hours. So we're gonna do a couple more questions here, but then, like I said in the beginning of this video, you can always ask questions that were not answered already, or if you're watching this after the live, in the comment section below. So after the video ends, put your unanswered questions in the comments, and then we'll take those non-duplicated ones and then add them into the pre-submitted question section of next week's live Q&A video, which will be on Thursday. Okay. Okay. Okay, you've done all the calculations, the profit calculations. This is the follow-up from a previous question, but I can't understand how some sellers are selling at $10 and I can't make profit unless I sell at $15. How does it work? Yep. So most likely what's happened is a few things. Is one, economy of scales. This is a jargon word that basically just means like bigger companies are able to have lower costs because they can buy more inventory. And yeah, typically when you buy more inventory, the per unit cost is cheaper. And so that's one reason why these big competitors, big products are able to sell cheaper than you, because they have a lower cost of goods sold, whether they're buying more inventory and that's why, or they have something else that's optimized that's helping their per unit cost or bringing their per unit cost down. That could be so many factors. That could be they have an easy way of shipping the product or a cheaper way of shipping the product. Maybe their cost per acquisition is cheaper. So they have better ways of getting people to buy their product that doesn't involve them spending a lot of money on ads. Maybe they have a really great off Amazon presence and they do a lot of organic traffic pushes to Amazon. So they can actually lower their price because now their cost per sale or cost per acquiring a customer is cheaper. And so there's a lot of different reasons like those, as just a few examples, that why some suppliers, or I'm sorry, products, brands can sell it cheaper than you. Some of them also just are the suppliers themselves. So that's something to consider. But I would never try to go a race to a bottom. You don't always have to be the cheapest option. In fact, I would recommend selling products that aren't the cheapest option, because if someone's only buying your product because it's cheaper, that's not a real way to differentiate your product or your brand. I would never launch a product because it's going to be cheaper than everybody else. The better way, in my opinion, is by making a product that's truly better than the competition. And doesn't just mean your listing is better, or your branding is better, or you have a better brand name. It means that you've done something to improve the product. And the best way of figuring out what you need to do to get there is to read customer reviews. You can do it manually yourself, but if you have Jungle Scout, you can use our review analysis tool. It's a relatively new tool. It's my favorite Jungle Scout tool now, but you basically type in any ASIN. So let me just like kind of grab one here. And I'm going to put it into review analysis, and it'll give you a whole bunch of data, including this like information on all the actual reviews. So you can read here to see like some cool trends, and you can sort it by day, week, month, year, and like kind of like dive into the reviews if you want to read them like this. Or you can come down here, and really should be doing both, but like seeing what people are talking about in the reviews. So this is analyzing all the reviews on a listing, or most of them, and saying what people are like about them, the product, what they dislike about it, and also like how you can improve it. There's some other cool prompts here as well, like how you can beat this product specifically. But what I would do is do this review analysis on a bunch of products in the niche and figure out a few things. So people really appreciate that it stays securely in place. We're looking at a mat here. So they like that there's like some sort of like rubber backing underneath, I would assume. And it works for both indoor and outdoors. But what they don't like is the quality of the packaging. Okay, it's not really that big of an improvement. That's more of like a branding improvement. So it came torn and wrinkled, so that's why the packaging stinks. It needs to be in better packaging. There's a few comments regarding the cheap plastic trim. Okay, so like the trim on the product is really cheap. So that is like, yeah, that right here, that area. And so that could be something that you actually improve. That could be a functional improvement. They also mentioned concerns about the mat will not hold up in high traffic areas. So, you know, if you actually improve the product durability, that's something that you could improve. So this is just one example. You want to do this for multiple products to get a bigger list. But what I'm trying to get at here is if you improve your product and it's genuinely a better product, you can sell at a higher price point because people are willing to buy that improved product. But if your only differentiating factor is price, then that's all you have. And it's a race to the bottom, and you're not going to be as profitable as somebody like these competitors you mentioned that have a greater efficiency or lower cost of goods. So that would be my biggest suggestion for everybody watching this, is to figure out a way of actually improving a product. And then that justifies a higher price point. And you can go 2 or 3 times the products that are being sold, except you just want to make sure that there's other products on the market that are selling at that price range or within that price range. If you're truly a unicorn product and you're one of one, then it might be hard to get that data. But most often than not, you'll find out that there are a few products that are priced in the premium range that are able to sell 200, 300, 400 units a month. And when you find a couple of those products, you can validate that, okay, people are willing to spend more money to buy this type of product. But you might find that, no, this type of product, people just want the cheapest product. Like, what's a good example? I don't know. Sometimes you buy products. I mean, you could probably think of this, go on your Amazon order history and look at them. And you're like, I don't know what that brand is or why I bought it, but I liked it because it was cheaper than everybody else. So like a $5 or $10 product. A lot of times those products are just really hard for you as a premium brand or a premium product to come in and compete and sell at. So just like try to think about that yourself and try to find sellers that are actually selling those higher priced items consistently and doing it a lot. So looking for like your 300 or 400 monthly sales, and they're consistently able to sell at that higher price range. That to me, I think is my biggest advice here. And I think it's, very applicable for hopefully a lot of you guys watching as you do product research. But I am going to have to leave it there. Running out on 2 hours. Got a meeting and got to catch. I do hope you guys gained a lot of value from this week's live Q&A video. Remember to join us next week, next Thursday, for our live Q&A videos. Our live Q&A video, Lenny should be back in the office. He's away at Prosper right now, Amazon seller event. So if you want to join next week, make sure to join same time, 11 a.m. Central Time. Was at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So I hope to see you there. I hope you guys learned a lot. But until next week, good luck. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys later. Take care.